The extreme heat poses numerous threats to your pets. Just this week, we told you about a former Rattlers player who was arrested for leaving his dog in a hot car for hours. This is video of when police rolled up here, police body cam. Glendale officers were about to break the windows of the car when the owner, Patrick Jones, walked outside, claimed he had nowhere else to keep the dog. So the dog then was taken to a shelter. Jones is now facing animal cruelty charges. Under Arizona's Good Samaritan law, it is legal to use reasonable force to rescue a pet from a hot car.
The heat also increases the risk of drownings, with more people these days looking to cool off in pools and lakes. And just yesterday, Valley influencer Emily Kaiser posted this Instagram story urging people to put up pool fences, add barriers, teach your kids to swim, and always watch them around water. Her 3-year-old son drowned in their backyard pool 10 months ago. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office declined to charge her husband, who was home when their child fell into the pool.
And it's interesting that she's talking about, having some sort of a barrier, because they had a barrier, but it just wasn't on. It was one of those, the covers that go over the pool. Josh Crowswood is back with us. Thank you, Josh. It's weird because it seems very selective. Sometimes we see parents prosecute. I remember a famous case, it had to be 10, 15 years ago, where a mom left her child in a bathtub and went in the other room. Yes. She was prosecuted.
Yep.
And now we're seeing Emily and her husband not.
Yeah, leaving the child in the bathtub was a really famous case here in Arizona. The difference is that in that case, the mother knew that the child, an infant, was in the bathtub, where Brandon Kaiser, the person involved in the story that you just talked about, he was unaware that his son was actually in the pool. So the level of risk is much higher when you actually know that the child is in a body of water, that you have more responsibility to make sure that they don't go under, and that you certainly watch them when they're in that body of water.
So this gray area of negligence versus an honest mistake, is what is decided?
Yeah, it is when it involves humans. If it's involving pets, like the Arizona Rattlers case,
then it's always negligence.
No, then it's reckless, which is a little bit higher standard. But under the child abuse laws, it does include the lower negligence standard. So it does make it easier to charge when somebody leaves their child in the back seat of a hot car, or they drown in their pool, compared to leaving your pet inside of the car under the same scenario.
What if you have, say, a pool fence, and unfortunately we've heard this story several times, where, the latch was broken on the pool fence gate, and you never got it fixed. Does that raise to a criminal level?
Not under those facts,
okay.
No. However, if the homeowners were aware that the latch was broken and that, the pool gate was open, like it always is because it is broken, and let's say that the person who's supposed to be watching them was drinking inside the house, and the child finds themselves into the pool area and then drowns. I would expect in that scenario that at least child abuse charges would be the result, if not negligent homicide.
It seems like there are a lot of gray areas with these laws, and you guys were talking about the stand your ground law, which is pretty black and white. It's easy to determine whether this person's going to get charged or not if they discharge their weapon. But in cases of negligence or recklessness, it's much tougher.
It is, and the chronology of events is very important. And what else is important is getting into the mind of the so-called perpetrator. Like, what did that person know at the time that the incident happened? So in the Arizona Rattlers case, was he aware that it was going to be 105 degrees that day? Was he aware that, maybe he had his AC on in his car and that it turned itself off? Many people in Arizona know that, your AC will turn off despite if the keys are inside after 30 minutes or an hour. So a lot of those little things matter. But in that case, the most important thing is this, that when he approached the car, the first thing he said to the officer was, "That's not my car."
Yeah.
And that's consciousness of guilt. And then he later said that he wanted to abandon the animal. Again, a prosecutor is going to say that that's consciousness.
So recanting your story, changing the circumstances, all goes against him.
Absolutely. Yep. And so they want to be able to differentiate between an honest mistake, an honest accident, with somebody who kind of knew what was going on, but they disregarded that risk anyway.
Right.
All right, Josh. Interesting stuff.
Yeah,
Good
it
talk.
is. Josh, thanks.
Yeah.